I want to anchor us in scripture before we get to hear stories of miracles. There's this story in Luke chapter 18. It's in verse 35. It says, as Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. He called out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted all the more, Son of David, Son of David, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus stopped and ordered the man to be brought to him. When he came near, Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Lord, I want to see, he replied. Jesus said to him, receive your sight. Your faith has healed you. And this passage of scripture really stuck out to me lately, and there's two groups of people that I want to address, thinking that several of you, including myself, are represented in one of these groups of people. But two words really struck out to me. I've heard this story preached. I'm not even sure if I've ever preached on it, but I've heard this story, I've read this story, and most recently, when I was reading it just in my devotion, two words stuck out to me in this scene, because Jesus is on his way up with his disciples, with a big crowd of people. There's a crew going. They started in Galilee, and then they started going, even though it's south on a map, they started going up to Jerusalem. That was the journey, and they were going from town to town, village to village, and the crowd just kept growing. And now they're in Jericho, which is just on the outside. It's like the last town you get to before like Bethany and the Mount of Olives, before you're finally in Jerusalem. It's a big crowd of people, and they get to Jericho, and this guy he's heard the stories, and Jesus is showing up, and so he can't see, he doesn't have anything to offer, and so he just takes a shot, and he is unashamedly begging. Two words. It says that the people, they were like, yeah, keep quiet. Hey, not you. Like, we're going somewhere. We're on a mission. And it says that Jesus stopped. Jesus stopped. I just want to tell you tonight, or maybe a better way is to remind you, is that no matter the size of the crowd, Jesus always sees the people. No matter how many people are in the building, he always sees the individual. And I love how Camilo opened the night, and he didn't know this is where I was going. To be quite honest, I wasn't sure where I was going. And he said, let's ask God you ask God to do something for you, how you want him to move in your life. And I just want you to know that Jesus sees you, and he's willing to stop and have a conversation with you. He's willing to pause for a little bit and dialogue and address your needs and talk about what you're going through and meet you where you're at and to help you in your moment of weakness. Some of you feel so unseen, so forgotten, not sure if God cares, not sure where God went. I just want to tell you that Jesus stopped. And I pray tonight that in this moment of this gathering, there could even be a moment for you that just reminds you that Jesus he's right where you're at. He knows what you're going through. He knows what you're struggling with. He knows what you're walking through. He knows what dreams are in your heart, what struggles are in your story. He knows you, and he wants to stop and have a dialogue with you. But I want to speak to another group. And if I'm honest, this is where most of us are at. It's the crowd. We're in a crowd tonight, and I am grateful. I mean, this place is going off. The YA is the place to be. I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, God is on the move. He's doing such a great work. This new song that we just sung, I have a feeling it's going to do pretty well based on the first time that I'd sing it, sung in our church. And turns out Elevation, they can write some music. It's really phenomenal. And again, some of you might be here for the very first time, but I would imagine for most of us, it's not infrequent that we're in a crowd like this. And for me, I know it's definitely not infrequent. I mean, for crying out loud, I work at a church. I've worked at this church for 15 years. So if you just want to count up how many gatherings I've sat in, and I mean, what a great privilege and opportunity. But if I'm not careful, man, I can just be like, try to throw the resume down like, God, I've been around for a long time. But what I've noticed in my own life and the lives of countless young adults, high school students, people that come to church here, college students, is that it's easy, too easy, to be around Jesus and miss what he is actually doing. It's really easy to be in the crowd that's following Jesus, quote unquote, but miss what he's doing. And I just want to help myself tonight and help you from the same mistake that these men and women made. Because what did they do? They told the guy to be quiet. They said, hey, calm down. We're on our way to Jerusalem. We don't have time to stop and pick up a blind beggar. Like, there's probably not going to be a way that you can even make it to Jerusalem with us. You're going to slow us down. And so maybe if you were able, and if you're, had all of your faculties in order, and like you weren't, having this handicap, not being able to see, maybe we would stop and say, hey, come on, we're going to Jerusalem. It's time. But they're like, no. That they missed what Jesus was doing. They led the man away, but Jesus stopped to bring them close. You're in a crowd tonight, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're part of our church, man, we're grateful for the chance to build with you. If you're a guest or if you come to YA because just God's moving and you want to be in the room, it's our honor to host you and to serve you. But no matter what, you're in a crowd. Just do your best not to miss what he's actually doing. And for me, here's the trick. Go back to it. In verse 39, it says, those who led the way were the ones that rebuked the man and told him to be quiet. And if we're honest, I think that's how we often miss what Jesus is doing, is because we go from following him to actually trying to lead him. These men and women were invited to follow Jesus, but for whatever reason, it says in the scripture that they started leading the way. And in our faith, isn't that the case? We're grateful to get saved. We're grateful to get rescued. We're grateful to get redeemed. We're grateful to get included in. But then all of a sudden, maybe I'm just talking to myself, we start thinking, man, we're pretty special. We're something. And now it's not just my chance to follow Jesus. It's his time to follow me. And I'm not just here to do what he wants me to do and get on his page and his message and his mission and his purpose. It's time for him to get on my page and my plans and my purpose. And so Jesus, our relationship is actually really here for you to do for me what I need, what I want, versus me trying to position myself. God, what do you want? Jesus, what do you want? Where are you going? What are you doing? And if only they would have recognized when they saw that man and truly believed, even though they'd seen it so many times, if these men and women would have been ready for another miracle. We just sang about it. But they weren't ready. They had seen, some of these men and women had seen the miracles. We don't know exactly if these were new people or if these were all the disciples, but there was people in the crowd that had seen the walking on water, the feeding of the 5,000, people getting cured of diseases, people receiving sight, the guy that got the mud put on his eyes. Some of these people had seen that. But yet when they saw the man, they're like, we got to keep going. And if only they would have been like, if he did it then, he can do it again. And we're on the journey, always ready for another one. Are you walking in life believing, paying attention to, expecting, asking, hoping for Jesus to do another miracle, not counting anyone out, including yourself? Or are you and I just so focused on our plan and our agenda and where we're going that we miss what Jesus is actually doing? Sometimes the greatest miracles are divine interruptions. And then here is where it ends. Verse 43. Immediately. How good is that? When did he receive sight? Immediately. Just one word. He received sight and he followed Jesus, praising God. This man was stuck on the side of the road, unable to see, and next thing you told to be quiet, and now he's in the crew, he's in the crowd, and then he starts the journey, saved by grace, changed by the power of Jesus, and now he's with the crowd going to Jerusalem to see Jesus give his life on the cross. And then check it out. When all the people saw it, they also praised God. When everyone saw it, it was another miracle that was only giving glory to the one who deserves it. You deserve it, Jesus. You deserve it, Jesus. You deserve it, Jesus. And they were all glorifying and praising God, which was incredible. And I bet some of them were also just like, man, I wish we would have been on the front side of that miracle, not just on the back side. And that's where I want to live, because we're about to hear some miracle stories. We're about to celebrate in this place. Baptism, what it is people's lives who have not been changed by doing good or coming to church or trying to get everything in order. Baptism is a public declaration that people have been saved from the consequences of their sin and the separation of our souls forever that is the result of that sin. And it's been this declaration that we have received not just physical earthly sight, but spiritual, eternal sight of the right relationship with God, new faith, new heart. It's a miracle. It's the miracle of miracles. And there's gonna be some powerful stories shared in a moment. Like Brendan's gonna start, and when he's baptizing his friend, if you're in his family group, if you're a friend or family, I want you to stand up the whole time these stories are being shared if you know the person. And we're gonna celebrate miracles. But I also wanna just encourage you, let's be on the front side of the miracles. When we interact with people, when we walk into the dark nights of this world, when we're on the journey with Jesus, let's go in such a way that we're truly ready for another one. And let's not be the people that Jesus has to publicly rebuke and say, I know you didn't think I could do anything, but I got that one. You'd be like, no, I told you, Jesus, the whole time. I don't know about these other jokers, but I was the one that brought them closer to you. I didn't send them away. That's the kind of Christian I want to be. That's the kind of crowd I want to be in. That's the kind of church I want to be a part of. And I believe by the grace of God, that is the church I'm a part of. There's a lot of people in this room and on our Sunday gatherings that are just showing up going, I'm ready for another one.